Office.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to the panelists. This is a great conversation and so appreciate you being here. Ms. Martin, let me start with you. In your written testimony, you noted that cities that want to take a proactive approach to code enforcement have a difficult time ensuring their compliance. So let me ask you, Ms. Martin and Mr. Waller, if you have any thoughts on strategies to improve municipal efforts and what we can do here at a federal level to support those local government efforts.
Thank you for asking the question. Code enforcement departments universally are stressed. It's very hard to find applicants. It's very hard to afford to have adequate staffing at the code enforcement level. And as you can see from the testimony today, it's imperative. It's the way we protect the life, health, and safety of these tenants. So any assistance that local governments could have to augment and support code enforcement as a function would be very helpful, for sure. And also certainly anything we can do to help increase the transparency of these investors so they can be held accountable for their behavior.
Right. And so I'm curious if you have any thoughts what we could do at a federal level. And this is I think many of us have challenges. We understand a lot of this, the enforcement is at the local level where it should be, and there are challenges at the local level for municipalities and counties. Is there some thought at a federal level, what we can do at a federal level to support them?
Perhaps creating some sort of a regulatory environment where they have to be more transparent in their reporting of what they own and what the addresses are of the properties. You know, they tend to be hidden in individual LLCs. We also find, you know, many of them aren't paying their property taxes until, you know, they're very delinquent. So milking properties. So anything where information and data can be collected and shared would be helpful.
And you touched on it. This to me is my biggest challenge right now is the data. There's a lack of it. There's a lack of accurate information. It is not easily transparent, I think, for many of us to even understand who the true property owners are. And to me, I think that's the first step here moving forward. If we are even looking at a federal legislation, is to capturing that data. I don't know of anybody who really has accurate data. I'm still putting it together in the state of Nevada. And so how do we ensure that we have the most up-to-date information to really address the tenants' needs and address the issues and help our local municipalities? I'm curious, Mr. Waller, any thoughts on that?
Yes, Senator, thank you for the question. So I would underline Ms. Martin's testimony and also say that, you know, there may be some basic corporate accountability measures that could be helpful. So requiring investors in this kind of situation to identify an ultimate owner, some kind that could be held accountable when there are violations of the law and costs pushed onto communities in this way. That would be really helpful. I think also thinking about housing code enforcement and housing safety enforcement as part of a necessary part of the tapestry of government supervision and encouragement of investment in affordable housing, and so perhaps even direct grants to housing code enforcement offices. I think the conditions are often forgotten. And historically, one way that we've had some idea of what was going on in homes and had some federal investment in improving the conditions of home was by funding voucher programs and funding local housing authorities so they could provide inspections of these properties. Because in a state like Georgia, that's the only regime in which there are inspections. Again, it's unlawful in Georgia for local communities to have, for example, an annual registry or inspection of rental properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. One final question. At Tuesday's listening session, which was a great conversation, really so informative, there was a Nevadan there by the name of Kathleen Hernandez, and she discussed her horrible experience with renting a property with malfunctioning sewage pipes. And one thing she and other witnesses mentioned was being charged hundreds of dollars for service calls to address malfunctioning sewage pipes. And so, Ms. Martin, I guess my question to you is, what can local governments do to prevent these additional fees for basic landlord services? I mean, what else can we be doing to address this? Concerns that we see here with these fees adding up and really not achieving correction or a cure for the ultimate problem when they're called out.
I've seen many unconscionable leases that tenants have signed in their desperation to obtain housing. So one of the things that is an effort in Cuyahoga County is right to counsel, so that tenants have a right to legal help. Our Legal Aid Society is doing tremendous work locally, and there is some funding that has come through Cuyahoga County and also from the city of Cleveland that ensures that, but that is not widespread. And one of our agencies, and I'm sure this is true throughout the country, it was called the Cleveland Tenants Organization. They were there to help with questions like that. Is this legal that they're putting all of this on me? So in some cases, I was seeing the landlord put the burden of paying property taxes onto the tenant, and things that just are simply in conflict with Ohio landlord-tenant law, yet it was going on. So I think educating tenants and providing some means to fund organizations that do that would be very, very helpful.
Thank you. And I know, Ms. Melinda, I see you nodding your head. You would agree with that, I would assume.
Absolutely. And I think, the lease terms that I've seen from Greenbrook and Carlisle have just been awful. And having rented many, many apartments in New York City and elsewhere, I've just never seen these kinds of lease terms where they're really building in things like, if you have a pet, you forfeit your entire security deposit, even though I've already lived in my apartment and have a pet. And so they're just writing in all of these really ridiculous terms into the leases that a lot of folks are signing.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I know I went over my time. Thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists again.
Thanks, Senator Cortez Masto. Senator Warren from